And welcome back to the NorCal VGC Grassroots Tournament here at CardArt Card Shop in Sunnyvale, California. One more time, I'm Ryan, joined by the ever meta-breaking Zach.
I don't know about that one.
Oh, you beat me on stream with the Rever Room. I'm allowed to call you that.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it. I'll take it.
We've got our round 2 matchup here coming in with our previous champion from our 1K tournament, Xavier against Alex. We went from the here's all the really fun, nice stuff. We got a Mess Spirit, we got an Enamorous, to here are two very meta teams that I leave me very little surprises.
Yep. I mean, it had to happen eventually, so we do have two clashes of two different, stylistically different meta teams. We have that Tornadus plus offensive options of things like that Urshifu. Both of these Urshifu are going to be the rapid strike variety using those surging strikes. So we have a very classic Tailwinds team versus a very classic at this point classic bulky offense team with Amoonguss and Iron Hands as that core defensive option to sort of pivot around this Gholdengo, Water Urshifu, and as well as the Chien-Pao and Landorus giving some nice offensive options as well. So really going to be clash of styles here.
Yeah, and it's not terribly surprising to see a Gholdengo on Xavier's team. It's kind of becoming his signature a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't blame him. I've been playing around with Gholdengo myself quite a bit, and it is still so strong. And when you see things like that Flutter Mane on the other side, Chien-Pao really doesn't like taking steel type moves. It's a really, really good pick.
Yeah, it could prove very useful in this matchup. We'll have to see if Xavier can slow down the game enough so that Gholdengo can get off one of those nasty plots. So it's a Make It Rain can really sting. We do see that. Alex doesn't have that many steel resists. The only one being that Urshifu Water. So we're going to have to see how this pans out. Tornadus, of course, going to be very important to make sure that the speed advantage is firmly on Alex's side here, though.
I really like seeing the parallel between these two teams. You've got Fake Out Rillaboom on Alex, Iron Hands on Xavier.
You can fake out somewhere.
Rock Slide, Arcanine on Alex, Landorus on Xavier. You've got two weasels on both of them. Chien-Pao just exists, and there's not a lot you can do about it. And then you get into the small differences of flavor where Amoonguss is very disruptive in the fact that it can put people to sleep, it can redirect attacks, but at the same time, Tornadus is very disruptive in the fact that it can really slow you down quite a bit. It's got Taunt, it's got Bleak Wind Storm, it's got Rain Dance, which I think is purely just to make this Urshifu smack things harder.
Yeah, we can
which is a very
as well.
tried and true method, to be fair.
I mean, Surging Strikes is just one of those moves because it always crits and it goes through Protect. You just stack as many multipliers on it. You get the Terra Water, you get the Mystic Water, you get the Rain Boost, and it's just picking up insane knockouts.
And it's been so interesting to see how Rapid Strike Urshifu has really taken the forefront, because back in Sword and Shield, Rapid Strike Urshifu really wasn't around. And then I got into VGC a little bit and went, oh man, I'm going to use Urshifu because it seems like it's so good. But I took Rapid Strike during my playthrough, so I was like, maybe not.
It is back with a vengeance.
My bad choices 3 years ago turned into good ones.
It's certainly one of the forefront offensive options of the metagame. It really, Flutter Mane and Urshifu kind of are the offensive duo of this format. Just doing huge amounts of damage to practically everything, hitting on both sides of the spectrum. That is part of the reason why Amoonguss is so common. It is one of the very few Pokemon that can comfortably deal with both of those insanely powerful offensive threats. So I feel like Xavier almost has to bring it here. It's just too important to give up.
I'm going to be surprised if we don't see an Amoonguss just about every game.
Its utility is just unmatched, right?
We've got the lock-ins here as both trainers are ready for game 1 of their round 2 matchup. Both of these trainers are 1-1 going in, or 1-0 going into this. Yep. Both of them won their first round matchup, as it is going to be the battle of the meta beast. It's going to be the Chien-Pao Urshifu and the Tornadus Arcanine. that's another thing that we didn't really get to touch on a whole ton. Chien-Pao here just makes Urshifu feel amazing.
Yeah, you do so
Um,
much damage.
Urshifu already hits really, really hard, so when you get that big defense drop coming off of that Chien-Pao, it just makes it feel all the better. As Tornadus Arcanine is an interesting lead here. You do get the Intimidate on the Chien-Pao, which I think is Intimidate, but Urshifu kind of doesn't care about Intimidate. It has
It wants to Surging Strikes here anyway.
yeah, Surging Strikes is going to be dealing critical hits, which ignores those stat drops anyway, as it's going to be a turn 1 Terra coming out here. I didn't look at who has the helmet, but it looks like it's going onto the Urshifu. That's Xavier crystallizing into the water type, making sure those Surging Strikes deals even more. This has become a sort of Ruin Surging Strike into a sort of Ruin Terra Water. Does it have the Mystic Water? It does have the Mystic Water, but it's actually going to get hit by the Arcanine and take a turn 1 KO.
Yep. Falling the Terra Water. Of course, if Urshifu had stayed that classic fighting type, it would have resisted that hit, probably survived, but Terra's Water gets instantly called out by the massive head smash and gets KO'd. But Chien-Pao not taking that lying down, gonna go for an Icicle Crash, connect, Oko, that's Tornadus right back. So
That's not a fair trade.
this is a pretty quick,
That's not a fair trade.
pretty quick paced game here, as Alex did get the Tailwind up, and he's in a prime position to just start throwing out huge amounts of damage. Iron Hands, though, is going to try to slow down the game a little bit, make sure that Arcanine and Urshifu can't just pick apart Xavier's team with ease.
Do you remember round 1 where there was a lot of slow play and a lot of very like nuanced movement, and then we get one turn into round 2 with these two behemoths of players that just decided we're gonna slap each other really, really hard?
Yeah, that's what Head Smash does. Head Smash does absolutely bonkers amounts of damage. So it just O-code and Urshifu. That is nuts. Urshifu on Alex's side is going to protect, doesn't want to get faked out quite yet, as the fake out does indeed go into that slot. So Arcanine does get another free Head Smash, provided it connects. So we'll have to see what the target is. Head Smash into the Iron Hands. It's a resisted hit that does half to Iron Hands. That is insane damage.
It is going to be the Icicle Crash coming out of Chien-Pao that's going to pick up the KO on the Arcanine. That's going to feel pretty good. My issue with what has just happened is I think Iron Hands is really your premier way of kind of knocking this Urshifu down, and it is just invalidated by the existence of Tailwind. It's never going to move first. Dazzling Gleam is just going to do crazy amounts of damage to it. It's not going to get the chance to do what it wants to do in this situation, and it's all because of that just super aggressive turn 1.
Remember how I said that Urshifu and Flutter Mane are a really potent
We found
offensive
them.
pair? Yeah, they're right here, and they're the last two that Alex has, and I think that's probably, he's probably okay with that, because Iron Hands has been chipped down enough where its bulk isn't going to be enough to keep it around, and this Chien-Pao, it has a Focus Sash, but Surging Strikes does not care about that Focus Sash, and Alex still has more offense on his side. He can terrestrialize that Flutter Mane. Terra Fairy gonna do even more. This is carrying the Choice Spec, so lots of damage, doing lots of damage.
Sucker Punch is not going to do a lot into that Terra Fairy, as it's going to be a Dazzling Gleam coming out of this Flutter Mane. It's going to be enough to pick up the knockout onto the Iron Hands, enough to bring that Chien-Pao down to Sash. If you want to see why this is the premier offensive duo, you are seeing it right now. That is massive damage.
Yep, Urshifu just gonna fall up, do that single strike, a Surging Strike, singular, only one.
We've depluralized Surging Strike.
Yeah.
It is now Surging Strike.
You just need one Surging Strike. One strike is all you need. Strikes too many. This Urshifu only needs one strike to get the job done. Landorus is going to be here. It's like, yes, I can intimidate and weaken Urshifu, except no, because Surging Strikes gets to just ignore that. So this is a very easy lock-in of Surging Strikes and Dazzling Gleam for Alex. Dazzling Gleam was the only option, really, because this was a Choice Spec Flutter Mane, and that just gets the clean one-hit KO with the single target onto Xavier's Landorus. Quickly knocked out there. That last turn of Tailwind was important. That Landorus was indeed Choice Scarf. So it would have been able to outspeed both of those Pokemon were the Tailwind not up, but Alex had just enough Tailwind turns to utterly sweep through Xavier's team.
That was brutal. That was brutal. And It's not to say that it wasn't well played by both sides. There were some really, really good like ideas going back and forth. I don't disagree with that turn one Terra Water, go for Surging Strikes, gets a massive damage down. Um, just an amazing call
Yeah, absolutely.
from Alex to be able to just head smash right into the Urshifu. It takes out the KO and like that was the game.
Yeah, that really put Alex in such a commanding position moving forward because one of the ways that Xavier had one, he had one less piece to sort of pivot around and position and do all that stuff with because it just got cleanly OHKO'd by that head smash. And you can see why he wanted to Terra Water, right? The increased damage is important, but also getting away from that Bleak Wind Storm weakness is very important as well. So, if you're Xavier, you kind of have to try to make those calls on what Alex is going to do because he's just pressuring so much.
Yeah, it was good because it was a spot where you were put in that it's no longer, how can I pull myself out of this game after turn one? And it more so kind of became, how do I make him make a mistake?
Yeah.
Which is really never a situation you want to be in. You don't want to rely on your opponents to make a mistake. You kind of want to like be in those power positions to just kind of make good plays.
Yeah. Xavier was kind of immediately on the back foot, and so
yeah, it's less about just losing the Urshifu, which is a huge part of this team. Urshifu does a lot of damage, but it's losing your Terra. It's losing a core piece of your offensive core when there's so much pressure on the other side. That's so tough to come back from. So it really is going to come down to how do these two trainers handle their turn one. And we're going to see that in just a moment as both trainers are locked in as we get ready for game two in round two here. Let's see if it's the same leads on Xavier's side. We're going to be seeing an Iron Hands Gholdengo, a 180 switch, as Flutter Mane Urshifu, a switch on both sides is going to come out.
Yeah, this is a really interesting. I think Xavier's lead of Iron Hands Gholdengo is a really nice lead into what Alex led last game, that Hisui and Arcanine and Tornadus. But Alex switched it up. He's got the Flutter Mane and Urshifu, which are going to put down a lot of offensive pressure here. Alex sort of realizing, hey, I've kind of got the speed advantage for the most part. Why don't I just kind of roll with that without even needing Tailwind quite yet? He does, as we can see, have Tornadus in the back, so we can bring that in, get the speed advantage against those faster things. But
I don't think Gholdengo's really like threatened here right now. I think Gholdengo's actually in a great spot. Actually, Flutter Mane's going to be switching out here in favor of the Rillaboom. If Gholdengo really wanted to, it's a Terra Water, resist the Surging Strikes, do big damage. But again, that's a turn one Terra on a kind of a risky idea, but it's going to be exactly what he's going for here as the Terastallization is coming out. Going to be hitting the Iron Hands, actually.
Yep, Terra Grass.
Terra Grass.
Going to keep it safe from the Surging Strikes and as well as remove that Fairy weakness in the face of that Flutter Mane. But Rillaboom going to come in, kind of preempting the Terra Water. I think you might have been expecting that like you were on that Gholdengo. But instead, Urshifu just going to protect a little bit of a slower play. But that is a free nasty plot.
Unpunished. That is so patient coming out of Xavier as the Heavy Slam is going to be doing a good amount of damage to Rillaboom here. It's going to heal a little bit back due to the grassy terrain. But what a smart play coming out of Xavier there going, hey, they're probably super threatened by this Gholdengo, and I have ways around it, and they know it. Let me just click Nasty Plot.
I'm just gonna
and he gets away with it.
Get the free Nasty Plot. Of course, Protect wasn't going to really help in the face of that Urshifu there, so does just get a free Nasty Plot. But now the Terra has been spent. Alex now knows there's no Terra Water option on that Gholdengo, so a Surging Strike seems pretty optimal into that slot.
And there's a fake out available on both sides. It's going to be up to whether or not Rillaboom or Iron Hands is the faster one here, because Rillaboom can only fake out this Iron Hands. Terra Water going to be coming out onto the Urshifu for Alex's side, making sure those Surging Strikes deal big damage. In addition to the fact that it is Mystic Water as well, fake out going onto the Iron Hands, going to make sure that it can't do a fake out of its own. So Urshifu gets to move freely as it's Surging Strikes into the Gholdengo. A lot of damage on the first hit. It's going to be super close as that brings it down to about 2/3, and that is the KO.
It does get the KO. Nasty Plot for not. That is an excellent turn for Alex. Just gets a free KO there, right? He has to spend the Terra, but you don't really mind Terra Terastallizing your Urshifu in this spot. Surging Strikes is going to do pretty nice damage to everything.
it's worth pointing out Xavier did not go for fake out there. The flinch didn't come until after the Urshifu win, which means it did not use a priority move, so there was no fake out on the side of Xavier there. And I wonder if Iron Hands might have been faster edgewise, or maybe if he just didn't know. That's kind of a, when we can't see the stats exactly, that's no way to know exactly what was in their mind, but
Yeah,
maybe fake out could have been the difference, because you know fake out's coming into you.
Yeah, I mean, Rillaboom's got a lot of. Rillaboom's naturally faster, so it kind of makes sense. Now, Urshifu forced to sort of play defensively here, going to detect as Urshifu just goes for a close combat on to Xavier's Iron Hands. Alex Urshifu gets lower defenses, but the Urshifu on Xavier's side going to protect from a potential Woodhammer, but Alex doesn't go for it, just goes for the damage where he know he can get it onto that Iron Hands that cannot protect. And now Iron Hands is brought dangerously low. Its bulk is the main reason why it's being used, but it's just taking too much damage, and this Wild Charge might just KO it.
Wild Charge is going to KO that Iron Hands, but it's going to confidently KO that Urshifu as well. We talked last game about, was that a fair trade, losing the Tornadus for the Urshifu? Obviously, Urshifu is way more valuable here, and I think you're in the same spot. I think Urshifu is more valuable than that Iron Hands. It was already so low, it's probably not going to get a heavy slam off onto the Flutter Mane next turn, so yeah, that feels great.
We now see that Rillaboom is going to join back onto the field, renewed fake out pressure coming out, and this Choice Specs Flutter Mane is going to be an absolute devil to deal with for both of these very weak Pokemon on Xavier's side of the field, the last two that he's got.
Everything feels really bad for Xavier right now. He's got no Terra, so he can't get rid of the weakness that Chien-Pao has, or the weakness that Urshifu has to this Flutter Mane. Chien-Pao can probably do good damage to this Rillaboom. It would probably be enough for the knockout, but then Flutter Mane just still exists next turn. But fake out onto the Chien-Pao, breaks Focus Sash, which means it could just be over with a Dazzling Gleam here. Aqua Jet hitting the Flutter Mane does good damage, but no critical. Actually a safe play on the Moonblast, enough to take out Urshifu in one hit there. But that opens up a Sucker Punch option onto this Flutter Mane. It's a bit of a tightrope walk, but it's not technically over. It just really feels like it.
Yeah, very difficult. I think Xavier had to play around Alex messing up here and does not go for that here. So we do see the Icicle Crash. Does potentially win a speed tie if this goes to game 3. Can't really see that being likely here because the Moonblast should just be able to pick up the knockout here. So just too much overwhelming offense, and Alex was making excellent calls, getting those turns right. Xavier just pushed into a corner way too quickly. He could not escape.
Yeah, and I think that was a lot of, that last turn, you look at it and go, why didn't you pick out the Flutter Mane? Because obviously it's the bigger offensive threat. And maybe he thought Flutter Mane was going to move out because it knew it was going to get targeted, so you can safely go into Rillaboom. You're making a 50-50 call there. You're not always going to get him right. That's perfectly fine. It was just so much offensive pressure coming from Alex that when you get these hyper offense against hyper offense teams, the one that's faster typically wins, and there just wasn't enough bulk on the side of Xavier to really try and stall them out.
Yeah, we saw that, like, Iron Hands has kind of got overloaded. Like, Iron Hands can do a lot, but when it's, trying to stack up against all of these offensive options, just pumping out damage into it, it just kind of crumbled under the weight. So, yeah, the Gholdengo was a really nice adjustment, but I feel like that Surging Strikes was definitely a roll based on how that looked like those damages were going. And if that Gholdengo survives, that would have been a game-changing potential turn there. So Alex very much was in the driver's seat, pressed the advantage, and sort of just rode that out until the end game and was able to clean out both of those games. So Xavier does drop to 1-1, but I mean, his play is phenomenal.
No discredit at
bounce
all.
Back from this.
In that game too, the adjustments that he make really kind of show you the kind of player he is. That was such smart adjustments going into the Gholdengo turn 1, and knowing that he's going to be in such a powerful position to do so. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of like take a game back. It just unfortunately didn't really go that way.
This also having played Alex myself many times and been on the bad end of his incredibly well positioned hyper offensive teams. He knows how to play these sorts of teams, and you can see that very easily there. Where in game 2, when he switched up the lead, knowing like, okay, game 1 went really well, but I can make it even better. I can preempt Xavier's adjustments, and he did that expertly there, getting not even needing Tornadus to just have the speed advantage and just blow over with offense. So really nicely done.
Yeah.
Both sides, I think.
Yeah, very very nicely done for sure. And you know, there's some stuff that we didn't even get to see. We never saw the Chien-Pao come out on uh Alex's side, but I kind of don't think it was ever necessary there.
Yeah, he had enough damage. You knew Xavier was bringing his Chien-Pao.
Yeah, he
you only
pretty-
need Sword of Ruin on one side.
Yeah, Sword of Ruin doesn't stack, so it's kind of a good play to go. You know, Xavier's probably gonna really want his Chien-Pao there, so I don't really need it. Just super smart selections on his side, really well done. But with that being said, we're gonna wrap up our round 2 coverage. We will be back with round 3 in just a little bit. We will see you then.